long enough and get gray hair. Yeah, senior year. Your time starts early. Erica does a fantastic job. She does a traveling roadshow every spring where she goes to all the Big West schools and provides new legislative updates, as well as goes over other hot topics NCAA-wise legislatively that we have going on. So today, actually, she's going to be going over time management plans. I told her you all would be kind to her, but we're going to ask lots of questions because the Big West, we opted into the time management legislation. For those of you who are not Big West sports, we're pretty much 99% sure that we're going to roll this out for all of you who are not Big West sports for consistency's sake. Our thought, Erica's and my thought, is in a year from now, right now this is an autonomy thing. They all have to do it, the Autonomy 5 schools. We're pretty confident everyone's going to have to do it probably in a year from now legislatively. So we're still trying to figure that out, so bear with us. I know a lot of you are not Big West schools that are in the room, so just pay attention because it's coming. It's probably coming for everybody, but I'm going to hand it off to Erica.
Thanks. Now, as Catherine said, this is the legislative package that was adopted by the Autonomy 5 conferences back in January. And it came as a direct result of student athletes standing up at the NCAA convention the year before, pointing their finger at the athletic directors and the conference commissioners and saying, we need better time balance. We need a time demands package. You need to bring this forward. We want to see it next year. And so they all got together, and this is the package that they came up with that was adopted back in January. As Catherine noted, the Big West Conference presidents and chancellors met in early May and have determined that the conference will be opting in on the legislation. And so we are all in, but as Catherine noted, we're trying to figure out what exactly that means. There's some pretty significant changes here, and we're all trying to work through it together. So there's lots of interpretive questions. There's just a lot to be figured out. There's a lot of unintended consequences. Those of you who've been around long enough know how many times we pass legislation, and then we pass about 6 proposals to try to fix the problems with that legislation. So that may be the space we're living in here. I want to hear every single possible pain point you have, questions, comments, concerns. As Catherine noted, we're working through all of this together. I have a growing list of issues that I've identified. We're having monthly conference calls as a conference to walk through all of this and just make sure we're all on the same page, because I know that really matters for all of you, as well as just to make sure that we're kind of all operating in that same space to the best of our abilities. So the package really boils down to 2 distinct areas. And the first one is this call for time off for student athletes. So more significant time off for the student athletes away from all athletically related activities, not just practice and competition. So when you talk to student athletes, they did a survey of tens of thousands of student athletes, and that was one of those complaints. It's not the practice and the competition so much, it's all the other stuff that comes along with being a Division I student athlete. The second piece is the administrative burden. And it's a significant, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, it's a significant change to how you've been operating. And this is that appropriate notice of the student athlete's schedule and appropriate notice to any changes to that schedule. And again, that's not just tied to practice and competition, but to all of those required athletically related activities. So the package of proposals that the Autonomy 5 adopted back in January, this is the complete package. So the first proposal prohibits required athletically related activities for an 8-hour period every night between 9 p.m. and 6 a.m. So that's a 9-hour period, but they're giving you the flexibility. So if you have 5 a.m. workouts, right, you can do 5 a.m. workouts as long as you've stopped by 9 p.m. the night before, and we'll get into more of the devil and the details on that in a minute. Additional days off for student athletes throughout the academic year. Time management plan, that's that calendar piece. It's that fancy calendar that's led us to this new term of TMP. Days off, really a big deal for quarter school fall sports. So before, where you never had to give that day off in the preseason practice period until your first competition, we're now requiring the weekly day off to begin at the beginning of your designated season. And then finally, this last proposal we're not going to focus on, that's off-campus practice during a vacation period. That's the SEC's Tara Harbaugh going to Rome, basically. And so they're putting a restriction on those practice trips. Doesn't impact foreign tours, but does impact kind of those football spring break trips that we're starting to crop up. You're going to hear me say this about 7 more times because it's really confusing for people, but we're not touching countable athletically related activities. So there's no change to what counts. So what counts in your 20 hours, what counts in your 8 hours today, that's what counts next year. So we're not changing that piece whatsoever. There's been no change to that definition of CARA. So practice, competition, film review, 3 hours, 4 hours, 20 hours, 8 hours, 2 hours, none of that's changing. So countable athletically related activities are countable athletically related activities. This is the big change. And this is that new definition of required athletically related activities. So RARA or RARA for the required athletically related activities. This was the list when they did the surveys that the student athletes really kind of complained about the most, impacting their time. So first up are the compliance meetings. Next are organized team promotional activities, recruiting activities, and most specifically student host. So serving as a student host, now defined as a required athletically related activity. Media activities, so press conferences, video, meeting with the student newspaper, any of those types of media activities. Fundraising events, whether those are team events or department events that involve the student athletes. Community service. Community service is now defined as a required athletically related activity. Team building activities, and finally, travel to and from away from home competition. So this is our new laundry list of required athletically related activities. If you look at this chart, with the itty bitty little font, right? This is a list.
Blow it up and make a bigger version for everybody.
This has kind of been the list that's been pulled together by professionals across the country and kind of encompasses all of the activities your student athletes are involved in. And there's a column that defines, is it CARA, is it RARA, is it medical, is it academic, or is it voluntary? And so this gives you really an idea of what category any of the specific activities are falling into. And finally, I'm going to touch the definition of voluntary athletically related activities. So voluntary, so that's your open gym, open weights, strength and conditioning, right? Coach isn't involved, there's no reporting back. That hasn't been touched. Voluntary still exists, but there are some problems we have now with this definition as we get into some of those other required athletically related activities. So again, just to reiterate, countable athletically related activities are considered to be required athletically related activities, but not all required athletically related activities are countable. So only what's countable today is what will be countable next year. Right? So CARA is part of RARA as we proceed into what that means for the time off for the student athletes. So that first proposal, no required athletically related activities for an 8-hour continuous period between 9 p.m. and 6 a.m. every night. So they're getting 8 hours away from required athletically related activities every day. There we go. So we'll start over here. We'll go left. We'll go right to left.
So if you're a student host and you're hosting them that evening at 9 p.m., what happens?
We have exceptions.
Okay.
And if you look at the chart, this one will be blown up as well and plastered all over the athletic department. And it actually comes in Davis blue and gold perfectly. You'll notice the list of exceptions for the daily, for the overnight period, is longer than it is for any of the other days off. So that includes those student host activities. More questions? Okay, that was the big right. So we're not making you kick them out at 9 p.m., right? Stick them out on the curb. Good luck, right, with the map and you know.
There goes my budget.
Other exceptions, and these first 3 categories, they're the holy trinity. They are always an exception to everything, right? Health and medical. So whether that's, you know, seeing the athletic trainer, doctor's appointments, rehab, prehab, if it's in that drug testing, meals, that's all considered in health and medical. That can happen anytime, anywhere. So when you look at the chart, there is that category for medical, right, that is permissible at any time, including in the 8-hour period. Academics. Academics are permissible during that 8-hour window every single night. Voluntary athletically related activities. So voluntary conditioning, open gym, captain's practices, that is always an exception in this space. Safety exception, right? For sports that have safety exception, same thing. Life skills and team building and promotional practice activities. Those can all occur in that 8-hour window as well, that overnight period. Multi-day events. So you're in a tournament, you're going back-to-back days, that's an exception to the 8-hour period. So you're at a softball tournament, you're playing 3 days over the course of the weekend, you don't have to do the 8 hours overnight when you're in those multi-day events, tournaments. That's permissible. Home competition. So depending on your sport, whenever you get done and you release the student athletes, that will begin the 8-hour window. So if baseball doesn't get done until 11 p.m., right? Student athletes are out by 11:30, that'll start our 8-hour clock when the student athletes can come back. Same for away from, yep.
That's only for home then. So what, does it have to be discussed like, oh, now that due to our 8-hour period time off, our completion of game has to end by 10 p.m. because we're starting the next day at 10 a.m. You know what I mean? Like practice. So like there could be an end of competition. It must end. If we're in a tie, we're in a tie.
So what's going to is just going to push when you can start. So if you're not done, you can start. So baseball's laughing, right? So Tuesday night baseball game, hypothetically, that gets over at 11 p.m.
Yep.
Right? Again, you're not releasing the student athletes until 11:30, then that starts your 8-hour window.
I'm thinking more for when a day and game the next day.
Still an 8-hour window.
So you might have to push back your next day's games.
So
And then you have to call umpires and.
Well, if you had a game that
if
ended at 10 p.m.
if it's multiple days, that's an exception.
Oh, home too though.
So anytime.
Okay, got it.
Anytime in those multi-day contest events, tournaments, right? Another exception is always when we get there is if you have to start to travel to your next location, right? So you finish a game late, but you've got that early morning bus to catch the flight, that's an exception as well. There's more exceptions to the overnight period than there are to any of the other ones.
Yeah, question. So is this only allowed in season, or is this something that's for out season 2?
Out of season 2.
Okay.
Every night. 8 hours. 8 hours is 8 hours is 8 hours daily. So home competition, activities in the locale, the away competition the day prior. So you're going down to Long Beach for an event, you get there the day before, it's an exception to the 8-hour period. So you get there, you get to the hotel, you want to do film, that's okay. The day prior is permissible. 2 days prior isn't, but the day prior is an exception to the 8-hour time away. Travel home, same sort of thing. So if you're over in the Bay Area, you're busing back. Once you get back, let the release the student athletes, that's when the 8 hours begins. So if you get home at 1 a.m., you have to give them 8 hours until 9 a.m. Yeah.
It seems like every possible circumstance that we would require them to do something within the 8 hours is covered by the exceptions. Is this just a waste of a rule?
Exceptions have eaten the rule.
I've heard of the opposite. Frankly, you're the first one, you're my 6th campus, right?
Okay.
And I've actually heard the opposite of that. This is that people having more concerns with all of this, particularly those who maybe have an early morning time practice or who have an early morning slot for practice, and depending on their travel schedule.
Okay.
And I don't think so when you look at some of those other activities too, that it takes it off the plate. I think this is probably, the 8-hour overnight is probably less of an issue than adding those activities to the days off. Would you concur with that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, but it is that 8-hour block. And again, some of these things, some of you will look at this and go, that's no big deal, we do that anyways. Whereas other folks in the room may be looking at it completely counter. There's variances in sports, there's variances depending on what time of day you play. There's variances depending on what day you play, what days your days off are. So we're kind of hearing all of the different feedback. I've heard people who think this is no big deal, the whole package. And there's other people who think it's the end of civilization as we know it. Yeah.
So just real, and you might have touched on it, but so this also includes like going to the training room and things like that as well. So all those other people that are impacted, or is that,
Health and medical,
So
always
that's
an
fine.
exception.
okay,
Health and medical is always an exception.
all right.
So, and again, that's, if you look at the list, if it says medical, it's an exception.
In the past, if you had, say, games on Sunday and then you had Monday as your travel day and you didn't use any practice, can you still use that as your technical day off?
You can't, and we'll get there in a moment.
So we have to give them an additional day off if, like, we drive down to San Diego and then have a 12-hour bus ride back.
Right,
We now have to give them another day on top of that.
correct.
Or practice the day you
Or
travel.
practice, probably practice before you leave San Diego.
Yeah.
So some of the feedback I'm hearing as well, right, is that this will be worse for student athletes possibly in some scenarios.
5 or 6 hours, find a way to get back from the bus.
Get on the bus.
Well, we can, because we're still in that 8-hour period, we need that before then, so.
But only if we get it before 9 p.m.
I'm just waiting for what the adults
So the weekly days off, right? Let's get to those weekly days off, what counts, what doesn't count. So our rule now, right, it's 1 day off per week, in the 20 hours, 2 days off when we're in the 8 hours. But right now the rule is only from Kara. So now we're gonna add RARA. So all RARA is precluded now on those days off, yeah.
If you're flying different time zones, what hours do you use?
When you return.
Like if we were flying to the East Coast, we have to use that as a day, right? And then we would probably practice that day, but then if we did it at a certain time, there's certain time slots the other, like opposing team gives you at their field. When were you allowed to start a practice? Is it East Coast hours or West Coast?
Well, at that point, if you're traveling, that's not the 8 hours, right? So you're traveling, you can get off, just like you can now, you can get off the plane and go train, right?
So but we can't use that fly day as a day off.
As a day off, right? And we'll get to all those specifics, but but you probably weren't using it on the front end anyways as your day off, were you? Probably, were you using it on the front end as a day off? Or typically were you flying there and then training?
It just with the time, you can't really get off the plane and,
Okay.
so you kind of,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, so right, so the travel day will no longer be that day off. The preseason and vacation periods, so again, you now have to give that day off in those periods. So before, when you were in a vacation period, you didn't have to give the day off per week. You're still not bound by hours, so your men's soccer, you're going August 1 till August 29th or whatever the heck it is, you can still go as many hours as you want, but you have to give a day off during that time period. Same
That's
for-
effective immediately.
That's effective this fall. Doesn't change how you calculate your season, right? So you've already kind of accounted for that day off when you calculate. So you're still starting on whatever date you calculated. You just now have to give one of those days off. So the longest you can go, right, is 12 days. Day off, 6, 6, day off. So I have heard some coaches talk about day one's day off, right? We're going to declare day one's our day off because we want to train hard for 12 straight days. But those are the kind of decisions you'll have to make as you're looking at your schedule for the fall.
Is that the week of the championship tournament?
Always accepted, and we'll get there. So again, on any day off, so whether it's that 1 per week when you're in 20, or the 2 per week when you're in the 8, no required athletically related activities. And you look at the list, right? Look at your favorite activities.
I'm trying to look at the
So
rest.
yeah, thank you.
Make a better version.
Take a picture of it.
So again, here's kind of the general list that then has resulted in the kind of the master list. So no compliance, no promotional activities, no student host duties. There's a limited exception, and we'll get to that one. No media activities, so no interviews, no press conferences, no fundraising events. So if you have, let's say, a golf tournament your team does, and you've been using student athletes to run the registration desk, that can no longer be the day off. Community service. If you're going and reading to the elementary school kids, can't be the day off. Team building activities and the travel. Yeah.
And we do half our athletes off on Monday and the other half on Tuesday?
Completely okay.
So the kids running the desk could have the next day off.
So individual variances for time off is permissible, days off. So another thing that will happen likely too is if you have a student athlete who's redshirting or they're injured and their calendar looks a little different anyway, you may be using them more so in some of these spaces as well, right? Because they're not traveling to competition, they're not competing, they may not be practicing as much. Those individual variances do exist, yeah.
What about a kid who volunteers to work camp and gets paid for it?
That's separate. Working camp and being compensated is totally separate.
So then they're.
That's not tied to 17. That's a permissible employment opportunity. That's completely separate from any of this legislation.
How do we tell them the time management plan ahead of time if we don't know who's going to be traveling
And
before the season?
so he's jumping ahead because he's got the preview. No, you've got the previews more so than some of the other sports. So the whole point of the time management plan is that we're going to communicate with them to the best of our abilities on a term-by-term basis of what their schedule is. That's why there's going to be changes, and that's okay. We're going to do the best we can. So you don't know who possibly is traveling, so that may adjust in those schedules, but you do know when your competitions are, you know when you're traveling, you know where you're staying, all of those sorts of how you travel. So putting that in is really what we're looking for on that front end piece.
Okay.
So the exceptions. So the permissible required athletically related activities on the day off, whether it's that one day off or the 2 days off. Again, the first three: health, medical, academic, voluntary. Always permissible on the day off. Multi-sport life skills programming. So that's kind of the life skills programming that's being conducted by the athletic department. We're doing resume building. We're doing time management sessions. Those can be on the day off, ironically, right? As long as it's multiple sports. Return travel if you get home by 5 a.m. So if you're home by 5, you can still use that as a day off.
Or coming back from Hawaii.
Hawaii is always, I was letting everybody process the 5 a.m., thinking about their schedules, and Hawaii is always an exception. To and from Hawaii can be your day off.
How do we start the process of getting the 5 a.m. changed to like a 12 p.m.?
We can't.
So it's got to come from SEC.
It's got to come from the Autonomy 5 conferences.
Okay.
So call your Pac-12 friends.
Yeah.
Yeah. Originally, this wasn't defined. In the original proposals, the first drafts of the proposals, it just said limited travel, and people felt uncomfortable with not defining it, right? That you may say it's noon, but those cheaters down at Long Beach would say it's 3.
Is this something we could do by sport? Because it might make sense to be different by sport.
Probably not, but we'll see. We'll see how it all shakes out. Again, that's kind of that correction phase I think we'll see. I also know that an issue, just as a conference, we should be looking at our windows, right? When we allow institutions to schedule, do we want to change those windows for match times, for example? Yeah.
Just so I understood you right.
Yep.
We play a game on Saturday night, and we leave directly after the game, drive home. We get home at 4:30 in the morning on Sunday morning. Sunday is a day off.
Yes.
Because we got home before 5.
Yes.
We get home at 5:01, then we train them right then, right? Because it's not a day off.
We got to give 8 hours.
I'm just kidding.
So I've got that example. And you're my sixth side. I've heard a lot of it. So give them 8 hours and then come back and train.
8 hours.
Yeah. So yeah.
Required study hall goes into academic.
So sport specific required study hall. I mean, those are things we should know. So yeah. So again, I've probably been doing this too long, right? I look at this list and go, okay, well now we're going to do 4 a.m. study hall because we looked rough last night, or it's a big weekend, it's a big holiday weekend, and we're worried about parties or whatever the case may be. This is a space where the Power 5, the Autonomy 5, would say no way, no how could a coach ever have study hall, but it's different at our level, right? And so those are the nuances as well too, is what truly are those academics that are exempt from this kind of space, those kind of normal academic activities versus something being used as a punitive or disciplinary measure.
Can you explain what's limited student hosting activities, and what does that mean?
Yep, so we're not gonna kick the prospect, again, we're not gonna kick the prospect out of the student athlete's room at midnight, right? So as long as the student host is done by breakfast, and we're gonna define a time
Okay.
that will say then that can still be that student athlete's day off.
Okay.
So, wake up, have breakfast, either coach takes over the visit, or the prospect leaves campus, 9 a.m., that could still be the student athlete's day off.
Okay.
They don't wake up by 9 a.m.
So, Coach Stork said that yesterday. So it is kind of defining, so that again too is where you're going to be looking at how you provide your days off. Do you do most of your days off in your 20-hour? Do you do most of your days off in your 8, or official visits in your 8-hour?
8 hour.
You have to have 2 days off.
So, question,
Same as with me, yeah.
so you're in your 8-hour segment.
Yep. You've been getting Saturday and Sunday off.
We typically get Saturday and Sunday off, but you have a recruit there, and you're staying for the 1 p.m. kickoff, so they're not leaving till 4 p.m.
Right.
after the game's over,
Or Sunday morning.
or
Right.
Sunday morning, so now you're gonna give them, you can't, so that Saturday doesn't count as day off, so Sunday, and then you have to give Monday off before you have that student athlete practice.
And you could move that to a Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever might make sense, right? But that is, yes.
It doesn't have to be 2 days in a row.
So-
It
It
has
doesn't
to
have to be 2 days in a
You
row.
might as well practice on that Saturday then.
So you're
And
gonna,
then take Sunday, Monday off or something.
and you're gonna shift, so this is gonna be, we're gonna actually lose some predictability, right? Now, some weeks, or let's say you've been, when your fundraising events are, when you wanna do community service, that could lead to a shift in the days off you're providing in that particular week.
So you gotta make the most of your days. You gotta do community service, you gotta do practice, you gotta do student host, you gotta do it all on one day.
Their days are gonna be studying all academics,
Or you
right?
find that.
But isn't that more than the allotted time?
But no, only 4 hours is still, the things that count in 4 hours are still the only things that count in 4 hours.
The main host.
So what I've heard,
I'm not that
so I have heard that comment, student athletes' days are gonna be longer and that's gonna be worse. Yeah,
So like we have study halls for all our first year students, 8 hours a week. Now that's accountable, that's
No.
not accountable.
No.
Even though it's a rare or.
nope. Academics is always an exception, and if you kind of have one of those standing study hall dates, then I'm sure the institution's gonna say that's absolutely fine, that fits in that academic space. Whereas a little bit more questionable is if, again, we're planning a 5 a.m. study hall after a rough loss, right? Kind of the old running upstairs, right? So that kind of standard thing, that doesn't count, it's in the holy trinity of exceptions.
So would there be a RARA log per individual? You say she used 7 hours today, but this individual used
We
2.
don't care about RARA, we don't have to count RARA, right? We just have to, RARA can't occur on the day off, but we don't have to count the hours. The only thing that's countable, or the countable athletically related activities, the only thing that we're counting today. The rest, we just need to be worried about what days are happening in that 8-hour overnight period.
So like the travel day, like do we have to say we got in at 2 a.m., but our practice time is scheduled at 8 a.m., so do we have to then say we're practicing at 10?
Right.
Is that logged or it's all?
Yes, it's going to be logged, and that's all part of this time management. So it's going to be logged, most likely it's going to be logged in Jump Forward, and more user-friendly calendar piece in Jump Forward that will allow you to kind of have that and then push the notifications and document all of those changes. They're rushing to get it done, so we don't have all of the answers as to what that's going to look like yet. We're hoping to see more next week when we're with a bunch of compliance nerds down in San Diego. But we're hoping that it'll all be there in a calendar that looks like a Google Calendar you can have for your team. You can divide it up, right? If you have a larger squad and you kind of want to divide it up into smaller, more manageable, that's where you're going to document. If you look at the list, again, when you look at it on your computer, there's a column that says must be in TMP, and that will indicate all of those activities that have to be on that calendar in that time management plan. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No,
but-
this is.
So Friday, we come in, someone comes in to visit.
Yep.
And they stay the night Saturday night.
Yep.
In the dorms.
Yep.
Sunday, that person they stayed with has to be off.
As long,
They have to have their day off, correct?
you're trying to use Sunday as a day off, right?
We have a game Sunday. Say we have a game Sunday. We play Friday and Sunday. And they come in on Friday. They stay with the host. So Sunday, you're saying since they stayed the night, they have to have on Sunday off or no?
No, not what I'm saying.
Oh, okay.
Not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is they have to have a day off, right, during the week.
Yeah,
And
Monday.
hosting can't be on their day off.
Okay, all right.
Where it's going to impact, where I see most of the practical issues with this, when you're in your 8 hours, you've been giving Saturday and Sunday off, but then that's when you're bringing in the recruits, right? And so then how do you manage the Saturday and Sunday off in that space? That scenario, you're totally fine.
Okay.
Yeah, you're playing, right? That's the obvious answer to everything. If it's a practice day, if it's competition day, that's clearly any rara can occur on that day. And we're not counting it.
So you bring them in Thursday night, they do stay here Friday, leave Saturday morning by 9 a.m. Saturdays still count as
Saturday can still be the day off.
and Sunday the day off when you're in your 8
Right.
hours.
Right,
You want to do it that way.
right. And again, you just may be adjusting. She's not using the full 48 hours in that scenario.
But my
Yeah.
question is though,
Yeah.
if it's within the 8 hours, so don't they have to be gone before 5 a.m. because then it's not technically considered a day off? Like, why would we make an exception and one leave at 9? Do you know what I'm saying, based on that?
The exception is because we knew that students wouldn't be able, the prospects wouldn't be able to stay overnight. Right, so that's where there's that limited exception as long as they're kind of done by that overnight. That 5 a.m.
Okay.
number is just for travel
Okay.
home. That's why it gets confusing. We have all these different numbers.
So is there time then, would it be like 9 if the recruit
It's going to be in your institutional policy.
Okay,
We're probably going to kind of agree upon that
Okay.
time as a conference and work forward from that. There was an amendment that was proposed to allow for recruiting activities to occur on the day off, and it was defeated because there were some people seeing all of these issues coming forward. So that could certainly come back up again, but it was defeated. That was one of the amendments that was proposed by the Big 12 conference, I think.
Then the next day off.
So still no days off required during conference championships or postseason championships. So when you're in, that was one of Jamie's questions before he left, you're in conference championship week, you don't have to worry about those days off, right? Because it's go. You don't know, like men's soccer, you don't even know where you're going or when you're traveling there. So you're not required to provide the day off in that space. So there's that example. We get home at 1 a.m. on Sunday. We can either take it as our day off, or we have to give them 8 hours off before we begin any required athletically related activities, except for those exceptions that are in that first column, right? The overnight exception piece, the academics, health and medical, things of that nature. So then, we have 14 additional days off that must be provided. So somewhere, anytime during your playing season, so anytime you're in your 20 hours, anytime that you're in your 8 hours and school is in session. So sometime in that window, you have to find another 14 days off to be provided to the student athletes. And again, that can vary individual to individual, but 14 additional days.
Being a fall sport, obviously school starts like mid-September.
You can start once you're in your 20 hours. So when you report,
So it's not like once in school, 'cause
no, it's only once in school for the 8 hours. So if you're not in school, you have to be in your 20 hours, right? Because the question comes up, well, can I use spring break? Well, if you're not in season in spring break, you can't, because that's not additional days off. They're already off, they're gone, they're not training. So it is an additional 14 days. So either when you're in your 20 hours, so beginning you're reporting August, whatever.
no.
And so you have from August 9th basically until June 15th or whenever the heck school's out
Yeah.
to give those 14 additional days.
So if our season ends before spring quarter does, can I give the days off after the season ends?
So there's another 7 days, so we'll hold on to that. There's also, in addition to those 14, right, we'll jump back. There's also a 7-day window at the conclusion of your season that you have to give. So it's a plus 21. Pick 14, anywhere. 7-day off cooling period at the end of the season, right? Exceptions being health and medical, academics, voluntary, and one-on-one meetings with the coaches so everyone can determine their appropriate stature in your program, right? Yeah.
So to say, take a day off and say we're gonna go to a team movie. You don't have to come, we'll buy your ticket. Can we technically use that as a day off? They don't have to come?
Let's see, what does it say about reasonable entertainment? Team entertainment
Yeah.
can be voluntary. That's one of those columns, can be voluntary, so then that can still be the day off.
When we give our 7-day window, and can I add some of my
Yep.
14 after that?
Yep, you sure can. So that's what women's basketball said before, they typically take 3 weeks off at the end of the season. Boom. Those days where everybody's just tired, right? Everybody needs a break, you're giving them a day. You're giving them a day around a holiday weekend. Those 14 days, I think are there, you just may not know that they're there yet.
So this is in addition to your required 1 day off?
This is in addition, it's a plus
Okay.
14,
Okay.
and then the plus 7, so it's really a plus 21. Plus 21. Spring sport quarter school. You can use 7 between September 15th and the start of classes. Spring sport at a quarter school. When do classes start this fall? You can use 7 days before classes even begin. So then you're only looking for 7 the rest of the year. So, nope, they don't have to be here. That can count as your 7. You're not bringing them in, even though you could be bringing them in. And so you can use 7 in that time window. Just that easier, right?
Yeah.
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 Does Dead Week or Finals Week have any impact on
So Dead Week,
days off?
where I think we're shaking out on Dead Week is, right now only Kara is restricted during Dead Week, and that bylaw didn't change. So if we say there's no RARA, you can probably pick up 5 days during those Dead Weeks when you're not in season, right? Finals week I'm less clear on.
So, sorry, I've explained this a lot, up to 7 maybe right between. So
women-
we don't start practice until, say, the 20th. So do we have 5 days right there?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
right, yeah.
Okay.
With the dead week, you can only pick up those days if you're in the 20-hour segment?
No, because right now, you're only restricted from doing Kara during Dead Week, right? So if you go, so right now you could be doing community service
Right.
during Dead Week, and maybe you are, fundraising activities or media activities. If you go ahead and preclude the rest of those RARA activities, now you possibly have some additional days off in that space. They may figure out that one, right, within a year, but as of right now, it looks to me, reading the letter of the legislation, that you can pick up 5 anytime you're in that scenario.
Okay.
So again, when you add kind of all those up together, I think the 14 are there somewhere.
And vacation periods?
Vacation periods don't count unless you're in season. So like
Okay.
baseball's and softball, they're in season during spring break, they can take days during spring break and it counts.
Okay.
You too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can take days during spring break and it would count. If
Okay.
you're not in season, so it's like winter break,
Uh-huh.
then you can't take those days, because they're not additional days, they already have those days.
Yeah.
The intent is days away from kind of those Kara activities.
Not in season, during spring break, during finals week, those count. Those can be plus 14.
I'm not sure on the finals week,
Okay.
and so that's a big question mark for me, because those all tend to be institutional policies anyways,
Yeah.
versus Dead Week, which is an NCAA rule, but right now only says Kara, so if you restrict the RARA, I think you can pick up additional days. Yeah.
The days don't have to be consecutive.
Don't have to be consecutive.
And, okay, so, just so I know, I understand it, at the end of our season, we have to give 7 consecutive days off regardless, then an additional 14
Throughout the year. Scattered
throughout the year. Now, what if our non-championship segment ends May 15th? At that point, we just say, for the next 14 days, you're off?
Yep.
Nothing?
Yep.
And that, okay, perfect.
There's a lot of ways.
There's
to
a
do
lot
it.
of
Like, we've looked
flexibility.
at most of your guys' schedules from the last couple of years, and you guys actually give more days off than you probably think you do. So we didn't find anybody that was gonna have like a significant hardship by finding ways to slot in the days off.
What about like during our 8-hour segment, if, say we
You wanna
do
give an
like,
extra one?
if we do Tuesday, Thursday, where we're doing skill instruction and then our strength and conditioning on the same day, but Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we're completely off, those would all count?
Yep.
Perfect.
Yeah, they're there. It sounds like, you know, it sounds scarier than it is. I think when you look at it, those days are there in what you've been doing currently. So again, the summary, this is all tied to the time away from athletics for student athletes. That 8-hour continuous time period from RERA every night. Day off has to be provided in preseason and vacation periods now. Day off has to be free from all required athletically related activities with those limited exceptions. End of the season you give 7, throughout the rest of the year you give another 14, so the plus 21. So that's kind of I call that kind of the playing and practice seasons, right? That's really what that space is in. So then there's the administrative piece, and this is the part everyone's trying to get their arms wrapped around. So the time management plan must be created in all sports. And that must provide adequate notice to student athletes of all CARA and all RERA activities. You'll have an institutional policy that will play a significant role. So we're going to develop term-by-term calendars with head coach, sports supervisor, and at least one student athlete who has to be involved at some level. Once we finally get that approved, then we're going to distribute that to all the student athletes on the roster, as well as to everybody else in the athletic department. Because obviously if media activities can't be done on a day off, athletics communications needs to know that, right? So other folks who've never cared about your student athletes' calendars will now have to care about your student athletes' calendars. Additions, changes, and deletions have to be communicated in writing with at least 24 hours advance notice. Extenuating circumstances do apply, right? There's funny stuff falling from the sky, and as Californians don't know what to do about that. Well, that's going to necessitate a change in practice, and I think we can all agree that will just happen. Other types of extenuating circumstances may need approval by the sports supervisor or compliance, and that's something that the institutional policy that I forget the leadership team is working on, and we'll have out all of it. Yeah.
It doesn't pertain to this. I just was thinking. So if you have an injured athlete,
Yep.
and that injured athlete is getting the medical, but they're not doing anything at training,
Right.
and the practice the week goes on, and say they're getting healthier towards the end, and you give the rest of everybody else the day off, then since that one player didn't train, you can train that player to continue so they're not falling behind even further.
Right.
That's correct?
Yes. There can be individual variances in each student athlete's calendar.
And even though they were at practice and witness practice, that doesn't count, or does count?
It does count if they're at practice because they're there listening. It's kind of like film review, right? It's kind of the easiest way to think about it. So if they're there, then that is kind of in that practice space. But if they're not going with you on the road competition, then there may be some of those days there. You can give them some of their extra 14 days, so then you can have more training with them once they're ready to go.
Okay.
So it's different. You're going to think about things differently. You're going to think about individual student athletes and their schedules differently in a way that probably you haven't before for that reason. The question keeps coming up on deletions, right? So it's Thursday night. We're all tired. We should cancel Friday's session. You're telling me I can't do that? No, it's not what we're saying. That's okay. Those occasional, we all need a break here. Texting the student athletes to say, hey, no training tomorrow, that's okay. It's more those habitual deletions. Putting something in the calendar and then consistently canceling it, because then the student athletes aren't aware of what their schedule really is going to look like. So that's more so what it's referring to. It's not just those occasional one-off, we really need a break, everybody's beat up, it's heading midterms, whatever the case may be. But those changes must be communicated within 24 hours. And those additions as well, because we're going quarter by quarter, so we're not going to know everything at the beginning of the quarter. And we're not going to know the individual variances, who's going to be hurt, who's traveling, who's not traveling, who's being a student host, when official visits are happening. But we're gonna do the best we can to do, at the beginning of that quarter, and then just update it as we go, and that will push out the note, that will put it on the calendar for the student athletes to be aware of those additions. This has been proposed as the general timeline kind of nationally for when all of these are going to be due. UC Davis is going to adjust these based on some sport-specific differences when you start quarter institutions. But really there will be a deadline for when those time management plans, when those calendars have to be done for each sport and communicated to all of the appropriate personnel on campus. So coaches will be encouraged to share sample time management plans with prospective student athletes on official meetings, not required, but encouraged. And finally, there will be an annual review. This annual review that will occur at the end of the academic year will involve the athletic director, the faculty rep, the head coach, and at least one student athlete who will all sit in a room and talk about how it went. And that's where any of those concerns may be expressed or any issues with the number of deletions or changes. And that's also why going through Jump Forward will help us with that. Because if student athletes are complaining that there's too many changes, we're not giving enough notice, we can pull the log as to why all those changes occurred, right? And finally, that report will go to the chancellor, who probably doesn't even know who any of us are yet, right? On an annual basis, an overall review of each of the program and their time management plan and how those meetings worked. Questions on that piece, on the time management plan?
I just have a comment with it. I mean, some of us have deal with the weather, right?
Yeah.
I mean, especially, you know, we're outside in Davis in August and September.
Yep.
You know, I just feel like we're allowing our student athletes everything basically except they're dictating everything other than the starting lineup, which is probably in next year's rules, right? And it's just, I mean,
it's not the student athletes.
it's a little too much because all of a sudden we're allowing 18, 19-year-old student athletes, it seems, to tell us how we're supposed to coach, how we're supposed to operate. And all of a sudden, if we play like soccer, we play Friday, Sundays, right? Or Thursday, Saturdays. I never know if it's going to be 105 out. So maybe that next day we have to give them 2 days off just to get their bodies back. And I can see it coming where one of them's going to go, oh, the coaches changed their minds on us. Well, you know, we didn't plan, right? I think it's too much, but I can't do anything about it. But I mean, that's just a simple comment, you know. And then a lot of us share facilities, especially here at Davis. I know that. And so what happens if a sprinkler breaks on the field, right? And now I got to work with the women's soccer program and possibly another program and an IMs. You know what I'm saying? It's too much for all of it.
Take the weight room into it too.
Yeah, and then we're sharing one weight room with 23 sports, and you know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's a lot. It's a lot to allow our student athletes so much say-so in everything that's going on, in my opinion. And I'm just going to speak for soccer. My guys, soccer players in general, they want more. They want to train more, not less. And this seems like it's taken away too much for me.
And I think it's not the training, right? And that's what the surveys show. I agree with you 100%. Most student athletes aren't concerned about practice and competition. Most of them aren't. It's the other stuff that starts to add up. But I've heard a version of your statement every campus I've been on, right? Those health, it's 105 and we need to take an extra day off, that's going to be okay. That's not what we're trying to avoid here. That's in that health and safety realm. We'll probably even have policies on our various campuses that we have heat indexes, right? We have times when the athletic trainer comes out and tells you, no, we can't go now. That will all be included in whatever system we're using to monitor these changes. And then when the student athletes say, hey, look at all these changes, we go, look, here's why these changes occurred. And we can defend our practices, just like we do in care all the time. You guys are blind to some of it sometimes, but student athletes will come in and complain that they're way over their 20 hours. And then when you sit down and go through with them and talk about what is 20 hours, then they realize, oh, no, we're not over our 20 hours. But that doesn't stop them from making that initial complaint, but then we have the data and the information to show. How many times a year do you think that probably happens?
Like 3 to 4 times a year.
On every
And
campus?
it's- Yeah, and it's the other stuff that Erica's describing, like, it's the community service, it's the life skills events, it's the study table, it's the hosting recruits. I mean, more and more I see it being more film review too, like not initiated by the student, like those are the things that they just feel like adds to their day. And even just our population here, what I've seen in our exit surveys is the travel day being considered their day off, and especially for hockey and lacrosse in the room that travel cross country, that upsets the student athletes if that's their day off. Like it's not a day off. I've been on a plane for 5 hours. So like those are the things that they were really after, is that all of a sudden on what was to be their day off, now all of a sudden they're being told they have to go read at an elementary school, so now it's not a day off. Like that was the gripe of the SAC.
And then it was last minute.
Yeah, last
And
minute.
and the student athletes, it wasn't just the staff. And like a lot of things, because I'm with all of you, and I know you're going to agree with me on this, that sometimes the SAC isn't the right voice, right, for truly for the student athletes. But in this situation, they surveyed, through the FARs, they surveyed just thousands and thousands and thousands of student athletes in this space. We all are just going to, and I've heard this at all of our institutions, right, because we don't have 4 facilities for every program, that we're just going to have to identify those pain points and try to get ahead of them. So like yesterday, Keith and Terry were talking about which days may they have to swap their practice times. The broken sprinkler, the heat, that's not what we're trying to get at all. Those are going to be extenuating circumstances, that's all. And again, no one's going on probation tomorrow for this. We're going to work our way through it, see where it goes, and it's I think it's going to be okay. I could be naive, but yeah.
I mean, I agree with Dwayne. It's just the thing I look at is that, you know, every head coach I would think in the country, in any sport, has the best interest of their athletes. And so it's kind of taken it away from the coach, and now you're saying to an 18, 19-year-old, you decide what's in the best interest. And not only are we teaching them, but we're also kind of mentoring them to become adults. And when you get into the real world, I mean, there's things I don't want to do, you know, and you have to do them. And in your day, things might change for no reason, and you have to adjust to those changes. And we're teaching them to go, hey, you get to decide everything in your life. And you get to decide when you want to do this and this and this, and it's not the head coach who gets to decide it, who is your boss, more or less, who is there to help you, mentor you, and make you better. And I think that's where, and I don't know if that's what Dwayne's saying, but that's what I'm saying, is that, I mean, we're just setting the kids up to go, hey, in this world, this beautiful world, you get to decide everything. And that's not true. It's just not. You know? And yeah, I would like to have a day off too, after I travel 5 hours on a plane. You know? But it doesn't happen. So,
I just want to comment that it might be just as good for us then, as coaches, to think about it as we need a day off too, and we're forcing, you know what I mean, like by law, we're forcing the student athletes, so then we almost are forced to take a day off. Which, like you're saying, you don't get to, but now you kind of have to.
I could probably speak I've probably been doing it longer than everybody, you know, and back in the day, you used to get days off. Today, we all know, we're all sitting here right now. There's no days off in college athletics anymore. It's a 24/7 grind, and we all know that when we get home off that airplane, we are watching video, we're thinking the next sequence, how we're going to prepare. So, you know, for the student athletes to get a mental break, yeah, they're obviously doing it, they're getting it. But coaches, I don't see it. I don't know a coach that I compete against that takes a day off, ever.
Is there team travel on this little tiny list?
Somewhere, right?
Maybe it's just like, oh, where?
go home until the two boys just decide.
Like, what if the student athlete wanted to leave an extra day to get their legs ready that was voluntary on their part, we give 2 options in terms of, you know what I mean? Could that be considered a voluntary thing where they actually wanted to leave early?
I haven't heard that. I haven't heard anyone tell people that team travel is voluntary, even if it was an option. But that's something that
You don't have to tell, I guess, I don't know.
Right, that's, so I did get that question, right? Can't travel be voluntary because you can choose if you come or not, so, but, right. I've heard it all, I'm telling you. Yes.
You mentioned the fact that like athletes will meet like a head coach and someone else and like they'll plan out, right?
On the front end, it just requires it kind of, it's almost like the care logs. It's almost like a sign-off mechanism.
Yeah.
They say, yep, we're good here, let's proceed.
Now, my question is, do they get kind of like a tiny list like this? Because more than once, and maybe not so much in male sports, but in women's sports, like girls will tally. And they'll sit there and be like, well, like coaches, like we shouldn't be doing this because we're going over these hours and whatever. And it's like, but I feel like sometimes it gets to a point that is a little bit ignorant because like they don't actually know the extent of what rules and so like it kind of makes us look like mean guys, like we're trying to like jip them out of things and they don't really count. So like it puts us in like weird situations where like you try and tell the kids like I'm really trying to look for the best interest of you, trying to make the best out of these hours, but at the same time like their ignorance or like even when I played I didn't even know, like I was just like whatever they said practice, I'm just showing up.
Right.
But their half ignorance sometimes like makes you look, you be challenged when it's truly like just a rule that we're all following. So like do they get a list like this or something?
So that list is probably gonna be plastered everywhere,
Yeah,
right?
so they get rules education, like all of us who are former student athletes, we sat through the compliance meeting in the fall and we go through what counts and what doesn't count. Obviously, they don't retain most of it. So this information obviously will be plastered everywhere, like Erica said, we're gonna blow it up. It's already in Davis colors, which is fantastic. It'll probably be in our student athlete handbook. It will definitely be in our compliance meetings. They will definitely get education as they're signing off on things, which we currently do with the care log. So we'll obviously educate them on what they're looking at so that we're all on the same page. Yeah, we'll meet with the SAC, we'll push out education that way. We developed a student athlete newsletter that we send out via Jump Forward quarterly this year. It'll be in that multiple times, so we'll push out the information.
There's also some people who think, and this could be very Pollyanna of them, it's old enough to get that reference, that having the calendar with all those things on it will help the student athletes really know, right? That what is countable versus what's not countable when they're complaining about the 20 hours or the 8 hours to kind of know, because in theory, all of these systems are being designed, you'll select the drop-down box of what the activity is, it'll color code it, and it'll tell everybody what this is. Is it voluntary? Because that's a common complaint too, right? Some student athletes say those things aren't voluntary because when open gym is, when open pool is, whatever the case may be, but clearly it's listed as voluntary. You just have to schedule the facility because we only have one facility that truly is identified in their schedule as voluntary.
In terms of life skills, so at the risk of offending some people in the room or maybe involved in organizing life skills, I feel genuinely bad asking my guys to go to life skills, especially in winter quarter and 8-hour weeks where we just finished season and they don't want to hear from me at all. And it's a requirement at night for them to go, and I believe that's an NC2A rule that they have to attend a certain number of them, right?
So life skills is getting, I think, overhauled. I know we kind of went overboard in that program.
Resetting,
in the last couple years. We're resetting with our student athlete outcomes model. So I think that's going to be rebranded, refreshed. The only things that are mandatory are the healthy relationships type courses, which all of our student athletes need to go to, and that's going to continue to be a mandatory thing. We're going to do a better job of programming that and scheduling that to get the most teams there in an efficient manner. Moving forward, just seeing my first year here, kind of how that played out as well. NCAA-wise, it is not mandatory. Life skills are not mandatory. So the student athlete outcomes model that we're going to be growing and developing, I think we're going to make sure that it's carves out and make sure it fits well within your guys' programs and schedules. So
I have something going off of that. I guess I agree. I guess I feel like Aggie Life Skills is great, but is there any way we can make them optional? Because sometimes I feel like it's another thing that the kids have to do that they don't want to go to.
Which is on the list of grievances, right? As you know, Aggie Life Skills is being redesigned.
Okay.
So it's not going to be the same. just put it out of your minds, what happened in the past, is happened in the past, moving forward with a new person coming in, it's gonna be completely different. So the only thing that will not change is the healthy relationship stuff, but we're gonna try to coordinate that in a better fashion.
Yeah, so like what other schools have moved to is like you pick two, right, during the academic year, or depending on if it's the career focused stuff, you do this one this year, this one this year. You know, there's a bunch of different models out there for the same reason. I mean, and again, that's the exact issue that the student athletes complain about. It's not the training, it's that stuff, right? So that's why that's all on the list. Yeah.
Maybe I'm getting ahead of it all, but as far as like documenting all this stuff, and you guys probably be talking about it maybe next week, like I don't know if which one of my kids or multiple are going to a marketing thing or going to a life skill or compliance meeting. I don't know necessarily who was there. Is that my responsibility to know and to document that and put it in some place, or is it going to be the host of that thing? Because, or you know, how do I? If I'm going to have to work, I'm going to have to document it.
It's probably going to work all ways, right? So big department-wide things that we know will probably give particular people access to the calendars to add those things, right? If it is those one-offs types of things, then that's where the institutions have to figure out. If it's athletics communications trying to set up an interview or something, are they going to go through you first? Or will they have direct access to the student athlete's calendar? I think most people would prefer the first option, but they're checking with the coach first.
Yeah.
To then just ensure everything's okay, and then somebody can put it on the calendar. Those are the nuts and bolts that we're going to figure out what works better.
More hoops.
Right. Yeah.
You might have already covered this. So let's say that we play a weekend tournament and we come back and Monday's off, and the enterprise reporter calls and says, can we do a phone interview with one of your players on Monday?
Can't do it.
Just say, we'll just have to say Tuesday.
Tuesday, right.
Or they do the interview and they have to have Tuesday off in practice.
Right.
A phone interview.
So,
I'll do the interview during practice.
so we've also, I've also put down on my list that maybe we need to change the days of the week we do our players of the week from the conference perspective. Because in some scenarios, we're releasing the players of the week on the day that is the day off for everybody. Softball and baseball is a perfect example, right? Monday is probably the day off. We're releasing players of the week. Perhaps we want to release them on Tuesday now because they'll be available to add comments, commentary, those sorts of things.
This is where I think like some of the rules that are general, like affect some different sports differently, right? Like we're not gonna, the national news is not coming to interview like 2 water polo players about how they did in the Aggie Roundup over the weekend, right? I mean, it's going to be the Davis Enterprise. They have an issue that needs to come out, and I guarantee you that the people that they talk to are going to be happy that the reporter's talking to them and seeing their quotes in the paper. So, and the issue has to come out, right? And it's a better story if it has quotes from the players in it. So,
I mean, and again, so you can try to do as much of your quotes after the game, right? Get quotes, and then they're ready to go. So you have the quotes, you're putting them on, so you have those quotes, because you had a game, so that's not a day off.
So you're the media person too.
So like I
get
asked,
your voice memo out.
how do you feel about today's
Voluntary phone call. You can answer for media, so
But there are examples at our level where I've heard where the student paper is calling in these student athletes on their day off, and the last thing they want to do is come over to the athletics facility at the last moment. But they're coming, right?
Yeah.
Because they've been asked to do so. So there are there still are those nuances.
Yeah.
Where actually probably we do bend over backwards too much in some of those spaces, and those are the complaints of the student athletes.
But what if that happens and we don't know about it?
And that happens, right? That happens now, right? What if somebody buys your student athlete lunch and we don't know about it?
True.
It happens. We deal with it. We move on. Yeah. Same sort of thing in this space. So it's none of these are death penalty, postseason ban types of situations, right? It's kind of the long-term play. It's, to kind of get to the intent and the spirit, which is more of that time away from that other junk they don't want to do, and more notice. Because there are, even in our conference, there are coaches who are doing daily texting to their student athletes to tell them what the schedule is for the next day. And so it's trying to get away from that. But those oopses are going to happen, just like they happen now. And we deal with them and we move on.
So we just say, oops, move on.
We self-report,
Well,
right? And then we move on. Yeah.
So what about setting up individual meetings with student athletes, and it's not in the time management plan? And we say, hey, what are you available this week? And they say, today. That's not 24-hour notice, but it's their choice.
And so then that's kind of in those extenuating circumstances. Those are the types of things we want to hear that we need to be prepared for, to say, yep, you go ahead, make that call, versus no, maybe you need to check with compliance and your sport supervisor in advance. Kind of where are those comfort levels so that we're still meeting the intent of the legislation? And so that student athlete dropping by your office, because you guys are their coaches more than just about the sport, right? So they're coming in, they're dropping in to see you all the time, and that's okay. And that doesn't have to be on the time management plan. They're stopping in because they're overwhelmed, or they're having an issue with their teammate, or whatever the case, they're considering their professional options, or whatever the scenario is. We're not stopping that. Yeah.
We're one of the teams on campus that doesn't have a locker room, and so we're kind of at the discretion of the equipment room. So on the next day, when they have a day off and they have to turn their uniforms in, and the equipment room people tell us they're only going to be there between this hour and this hour, what do we just tell them no? Or what do we tell them? Because that's technically they don't have to go turn their uniform in because it's on their day off, correct? So should we tell the equipment people they have to be at the game to pick up all the equipment?
And that's the kind of stuff we'll talk about tomorrow in the leadership team. And those
Okay.
are exactly the kind of pain points we need to hear. What are the specific issues? At another institution, their big issue is that their weight room is super duper late, right? So what are those real life examples that will cause concern in this space? And no issue's too small, right? I mean, this is
Dining
what we're
commons
gathering.
closed too early,
So,
something like that, or
well,
Food.
meals, health and medical. Food's always health and medical.
no, it just means like we sometimes have to get out of practice early because the dining commons close at 7, and it's like we want to give them time to finish their classes, and then all of a sudden our potential 3-hour practice now has to go to an hour and a half because they all have to go eat because they're all on meal plans.
That's a budget issue, right? Because in theory, you could practice the whole time and then feed them, per the NCAA legislation. That's an institutional budgetary type of a situation. But go back, look at your schedules, look at your travel schedules, cross-country trips, extended road trips, and really kind of identify where those specific concerns might be, right?
So looking at time frame, Erica still has new legislation to get through.
I have some campuses I haven't gotten to a single proposal, not gonna lie.
Oh, we can pass. We're all right. We don't.
Okay. We have 15 minutes left technically with Erica, so do you guys want to keep talking time management, or you guys want to be razzle-dazzled by some of the new bylaws that are coming?
Razzle
Razzle
dazzle.
dazzle, come on. Bring it. I need razzle dazzle.
And there's a lot, so you guys know that, yes, you got your legislative packets, the head coaches did and voted in the fall and gave us kind of your thoughts on them. There's a lot, so we're gonna continue to push information out. Like I even got a question from a coach yesterday that said, so I can have more than 4 student athletes at a time in individual skill instruction now? And I said, yeah, Erica talked about it last May, we did a newsletter, we did an email blast, like, there's just so many rule changes in play right now. No, we're gonna do our best to push it out repeatedly, but keep asking questions and just know that we'll do our best to push it out in a variety of ways, because again, it's a lot. There's just a lot of changes.
And the packet that Catherine provided to you, the front section's everything, and then we get sport specific towards the back end, so you can flip and see where your sport is and look at the sport specific legislation. So we'll focus on just a few of the proposals.
And I emailed this out, so if you prefer a hard copy, you guys can print it out however you want. We just decided to save some trees because there's a lot of rules changes.
There's a lot, but most of them are itty bitty little things, right? So here's one, and so protein supplements used to be on the banned list of items we couldn't provide to our student athletes. So a supplement, a bar couldn't have more than 30% protein. That's been eliminated. we can now provide any type of muscle milk, right, to the student athletes. It doesn't have to be the NCAA compliant muscle milk. There's still other junk in there that may be on the banned list, so talk to the athletic training staff. But protein supplements are now permissible, and that was effective immediately. Reasonable entertainment. So beginning August 1st, right now, reasonable entertainment. It used to only be permissible like when you were on the road, right? Or when you were on campus and nobody else was on campus. Then we said it's permissible anytime during your 20 hours. Now we're saying reasonable entertainment is permissible at any time. So you can go to a movie, go bowling, provide that reasonable entertainment to your student athletes at any time. You don't have to be in your 20-hour segments. Expenses for practice and competition, we continue to add to the list of tryouts and events that you can pay for your student athletes to go participate in. So national team tryouts, different types of events. So if there is something that your student athletes have been invited to and it's something you would like to pay for, check with compliance because a lot more of these are open. And it also allows for extra coaching opportunities for you to help train your student athletes for those particular events. There's a lot we continue to add to the list of those types of events. Preseason, exhibition, and practice scrimmages. This is a misleading rule, but for sports that have legislated exhibitions or scrimmages, a lot of you may have an exhibition or scrimmage, but you're calling it that versus the NCAA manual calling that. So basically this is a soccer rule that says they can compete in, and now women's volleyball and also basketball, that a student athlete can compete in one of those legislated scrimmages and not use a year. And they can do so anytime during their career. That's not spring ball for a fall sport, or fall ball for a spring sport. That proposal didn't pass. This is for those legislated exceptions in bylaw 17.
So, Erica?
Yep.
So you're saying that, let's say it's a third-year student
Yep.
athlete who we're planning to redshirt, we can play them now in an exhibition game in the fall?
Yep. Yep. Everybody else, you're still exempt from counting the seasons of competition. Includes alumni games and fundraisers. So anytime you play student athlete in an alumni game, that is an exception as well. They can still redshirt. But those other sports, when you read that proposal, it is super specific. So check with your friendly compliance staff if you want to know how your sport fits into that. Male practice players, any sports? Okay. So male practice players no longer have to go through the eligibility center.
Nice. That is great.
They don't have to pay, waste their money, right, to be told they're a non-qualifier, but they can't participate ever. They don't have to pay those fees anymore.
So then do they, we just sign them up as a practice player and that's
So you
it?
just have to go through all the appropriate documentation, right, medical clearance, all that good stuff, but they don't have to, what is it, $35? I don't even know how much it is. $75. You don't have to make them pay $75.
Do they still count as a female athlete at the university?
No.
Okay.
One practice.
They did.
So, did they?
Yeah.
Okay, a couple quick hits on recruiting before I let you all go, and then you can all read your packets. On-campus contact with former student athletes is now permissible, beginning August 1st. So you can have your former student athletes talk with the recruits, talk with their family when they're on campus for a visit, beginning August 1st. The exception, what's that?
She asked about boosters, so.
We're working through that.
We have to look through that booster Trump.
That sounds crazy. So, the exception for official visits. So right now we have an exception that says 1 day prior to an official visit, anyone on the staff can text or phone call the prospect or who's coming with them. We're expanding it to 5 days. So 5 days prior to that visit, anyone can be handling those logistics, the communication, dealing with those official visits. Again, August 1. Perhaps a bigger change, unofficial visits. So now the day prior to an unofficial visit, through the conclusion of the unofficial visit, anyone can call or text the prospect or who's coming with them, even if the prospect isn't old enough to receive those communications.
How many days is that? The day before?
1 day prior.
Awesome.
So,
What?
if you have a ninth grader coming,
On an unofficial,
and the ninth grader just calls you and says, hey, I think I'm gonna come to the school on June 1st. You know, you could start calling them July 31st and block them.
on May
I mean, on May
31st, yeah, I was like, is that a trick question, like?
Sorry, I always go back and down.
Yes,
Oh, wow.
and so the example that happened last week, I was on campus, the sophomore was on campus, she texted the swim coach that she was lost, right? And he couldn't text her back, because he's a very compliant and astute individual, so now in this scenario, he would be able to text her back. So this is where we're gonna need to make sure we're documenting, right, our scheduled unofficial visits and jump forward. And if the visit doesn't happen, conspiracy theorists, right, then you have to notify the compliance office, who has to notify the conference office.
It's like, oh, she didn't come.
Right?
12 times this year.
That's the 35th person this week.
Right, how about that? I might notice that after a while.
So, hey, do you want to come on a visit tomorrow? That can potentially be an okay phone call as long as they come.
Good question. Great question.
That's what we have.
What was it?
That is an awesome question.
You're the first one to ask that. Let me look into that.
Okay.
Let me look into that. We'll get that out.
Dan, good idea.
So.
Thank you.
I think truthfully, people are gonna be okay with that, because it's, at least you're calling them and not the third party. We're not supposed to be using the third party, right? So how do all of these kids who are too young even know to come to campus? Because you're calling somebody else to then text them. Right. So I think that'll be okay, but let me confirm it.
Yeah, is it, if they don't, what if they say they're gonna come, same example, June 1st, so on May 31st, you're calling and talking about everything, and then they call you and say, actually, I'm not coming.
Then you just tell tell the compliance staff, and you just say that this was a good faith effort, right?
So it wouldn't be a violation?
Wouldn't be a
if a
violation.
Freshman calling me and
Oh.
saying
Doggy.
Ooh, that's
that's
gonna open up a
basically-
can of worms.
That's all people are gonna do, is just say, hey, you're gonna come on a visit, and now they can call freshmen and sophomores and whoever, so that's all that's gonna happen with this rule. So they're just going around using a third party by saying you're gonna come on an official visit, that's what we talked about, but really, hey, I'm gonna offer you a scholarship, you actually don't have to come to campus.
That's still a problem, right? So, but it was intended, and there were people who were against this proposal for that reason. We had a lengthy conversation as a conference about this proposal for that reason. But there's some sentiment that that's occurring anyways in a roundabout way, so does this at least
Oh, it happens
solve?
all the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
So does this at least solve some of those real logistical issues related to unofficial visits with younger prospects? One more before we all go. We're going to go out on a high note. For unofficial visits, we are expanding campus by a mile.
Oh, yes.
Oh, that's huge, right?
There's new. So
Just a reminder, you still can't see
Still
for
can't pay for
yourself.
So great.
And we're gonna take that out, but now you suddenly go like this, it's not a contact, right? You go like this, and it doesn't just have to be the accountable coach who's passed the recruiting exam who can be having the conversation. So if we were talking about in the previous session, that opens a lot of real estate in Davis.
Yeah.
When you go a mile as the crow flies. There's a lot of stuff in there. Just one more for you, for those of you who do camps and clinics. There is now legislation, where is it at? What is the effective date? I don't have it. Actually, we're going to do two. Immediate effective date. If you have a camp, you can now conduct the campus tour
Yay.
during the camp. If you have a camp, you can set up and conduct the tour during the camp. There's an approval process. These smart people will figure out what that means.
We're working on that. We're gonna reach out to admissions and come up with either like them giving us the template of what their tour looks like, and that we kind of bless it and say, this is what our tours should look like for camps. We're working on that, so we'll get that out, it's camp season, so. The tours,
You can do it. It doesn't have to be the admissions, try to get all the little birdies around campus, yes.
Just real quick, since we're all gonna be taking a test real soon, that rarer stuff, will that be on the
No.
test? Okay, well.
No, that's not recruiting. That will not be on there.
Thursday, it is. Oh my God.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to take a picture and blow that up and start reading.
Minors, convention minors? No, okay, yeah, okay.
Slip it into the.
So, just the what's next, right?
Still wouldn't be on.
What's next is early recruiting, which many of you in this room have an opinion on, right? There were about 20 proposals on early recruiting, some for, some against, that were in this legislative cycle that were most of them were tabled except for one lacrosse proposal that was adopted as kind of a pilot program to see how it would go. You can expect you will see lots of surveys on early recruiting. And so make your opinions known. Sports vary, right? Different programs vary. So that is one of the hot topics for this upcoming year. One other piece on APR. Many of you haven't had to worry about APR, in a decade, right? You're not anywhere near that trouble zone. There is now a revenue distribution model tied to academics. And one of the metrics for that is APR, a department single year APR. And when we do the calculations, sometimes it can be just a couple of points, the difference between qualifying for that revenue and not qualifying for that revenue. So we're going to have a heightened focus on APR where all those points are going, just to try to make sure you're getting as high of an APR as you possibly can to help the department probably qualify for those dollars and cents. So again, even though you haven't been worried about it, you haven't been tracking on it, you will be hearing about it more. We'll be kind of going through those rosters saying, hey, where might there be more points? Are there waivers we can get? Do we have some extenuating circumstances here? So just stay tuned for that as well. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.